Okay, so we are doing the summary of the project that you're going to have to do is going to be just like this. You're going to be taking out a loan for something. You're going to pick how much it is. You're going to look up how much interest rates are for that kind of thing. Like car loan interest rates are often different than house interest rates or etc. You're going to figure out what it is you want to buy in this project, and you're going to look up the interest rate, and you're going to figure out how much monthly that's going to be. All right. So under our scenario here of the loan, we're doing the red one now, the $20,000 loan. If I go to my table, if I've entered it all properly, it ends up being on row 38 that it turns negative. Raise your hand if you got the same thing. Okay, good. Then we're going to take 38 times 600, but it's not quite that simple because they owe us money back. So you go 38 times 600, but then you subtract off the 494.85. Okay. Do you have that number yet? I think it was around 20. How many? 20 what thousand? 22,000 something? Okay. I want you to write that number down. Because I want this total cost, and I'm going to compare it to the total cost if we saved up in the money. All right, so this other part now, the Tvm Solver. It's under Apps. I'll show you how to get there. Apps, Finance, the very top one, which probably means it's their best program. And I'm going to go with, I don't know how many, so I'll just pick a number like 7, but we'll go back and solve for that later. We're always going to have you earn 3%. I know that's really low, but it's better than a bank, but it's not as good as stocks in the long run. So we averaged it out and said 3%. Present value, I said start with 0. See that on the right side in the black writing? Start with 0. So present value, 0. Payment, 1,000. Notice that's negative 1,000. Why? Because it's coming out of your normal checking account and going into the savings account for the car. Now, future value, FV, we want that to be 20,000. Remember that there's always 12 payments and compoundings per year. And also, make sure you're on end. If you just are on beginning, you're going to be annoyingly off by a few dollars, and you won't understand why. Always use end, only because the calculator defaults to that, and that's the way our keys are written. Okay, I know you might actually be smarter to make payments at the beginning, but we're going to use end. All right, last thing, how do I find this thing, N at the top? The solve, alpha solve, it's right above enter, so alpha enter, and there it is, 19.54 payments. Now, think about it. If these were $1,000 payments and I had made 20 of them, I would have put in 20,000. So I put in less than 20,000. How is it possible that I actually have 20,000 then? Because you earned interest. Okay? So this total cost should be less than 20,000 because you earned interest. This total cost will be more than 20,000 because you paid interest. And what I want to know is what's the difference? What's the total dollar difference? Because if I'm picking, you know what, I've got this car that's working and I kind of would like a new car, but it's working and maybe I should just save up. You should see how much it saves you, and you can be smart about how you're living your life math-wise and say, okay, I've done the calculations. It looks like it's going to save me like 3,000 bucks. You know what? I think it's worth it I'll just wait and save up for my car. I'm not saying that you're all going to do that. Some of you guys, your car's going to like blow up one day. I was driving in Hawaii this over break time, and all of a sudden we came across a car where the guy was pulled over and there was like smoke coming out from his hood, and you know, we're talking like pretty serious smoke coming out. So I pulled off to the side and we went over to check on him, and he said, yeah, I just came from the car repair place and they were just fixing something in my engine, and he said, I can tell like I've been leaking oil this whole way, because he looked and he saw a trail of oil on the ground behind him. So he pulled off. What had happened was probably that when they fixed the engine, they left some part off that holds the oil in, some little like screw or something. And so it was dumping oil into the engine as it was running. What do you think really hot engines do to oil? they start on fire. And so we got to watch this car burst into flames in front of us. Like it went from smoke and then darker smoke and darker smoke, and all of a sudden there were flames coming off the hood. Now I got nervous. Think about why. Cars have a tank of gas on them. Now the tank of gas isn't by the engine on purpose for that reason. Okay, so the ending to this story isn't a giant explosion, thankfully, but it with the car, by the time we drove away from it, was completely engulfed in flames, and we got out of there, and we left the guy. I left the guy a battery charger. I mean, I'm famous for having these battery chargers on me all the time. Poor guy didn't have his phone wasn't charged, so he's standing there on the side of the road with a dead phone and his car bursting into flames, and you'd think he might want to just drive away or with us and we'd take him someplace, but you're actually legally, you have to stay with your vehicle in a situation like that. Okay. Now, if he was in danger, his life was in danger or something, we'd have taken him. But he got advice on the scene that you can't leave this car or you're going to get a ticket for leaving your car. So I left him with a battery charger, so he gets to get his phone going again. And thankfully it wasn't a super expensive one, but anyway, so we drove off, and we texted with him later, and he said he was fine and it all worked out. But I just knew that car could blow up at any minute. All right, so there's a car loan kind of example. Your car just blew up. This car is toast. So you can't just I'm going to wait 2 years and save up for a car. See what I mean? He didn't have a choice. He's like, I got to get a car now because I have to get to work. Now, a lot of times you can rent a car, but you don't want to rent a car for 2 years waiting to save up for the car. In that scenario, you probably got to get the loan. And it's going to cost you a little more. All right. So, did you get a number? It was 19,000 something. Let's agree on what that was. 19,000 what? 549? 540? Okay. And if we round to dollars, then that'll be good. For the project, I do need you to go to pennies. Why? Because we have a computer program that's going to help us to grade your project. Because you get to pick anything. I hope you respect that this is going to be way harder for me to grade. Because if I had just said, if your project was like this and I said everybody has to take a $20,000 loan and everybody has to pay 7% interest and everybody has to have an income of this much for the job that they worked, I could know exactly what the answer was for everybody, and it'd be super simple. But we're letting you pick. So you might decide, okay, I'm going to look up what a photographer makes because I want to be a professional photographer. And I'm going to see, you're going to look it up, find out how much they make, and then we have set certain parameters, like you can't imagine that you're going to get more than 3% growth on your money for this couple of years. We don't want this fantasy like I'm going to invest in Bitcoin and get 9,000% on my money. We're setting a few things as like you can't do that. You can only get 3% on the invested money, and even that's probably high, but maybe you get some stocks in there. And then you also, one other rule, you have to only spend 15% of your income on this thing that you're going to buy. Okay? Why? Because kids sometimes think, well, it's worth it to me. I'm going to spend 75% of my money and get a Porsche. Okay, but then you have no money left to eat. You're going to be living in a box on the street. Okay, in the Porsche on the street. Good point. And you're eating the upholstery of the car for your... Anyway, I get... You sometimes have this imagination that can be wonderful, but we want to keep you in the real world. You can only spend about 15% of your money on your car. That's actually a statistic that they've generated over time, that the vast majority of people spend 15% of their money or less on their car. What do you think the biggest expense is for people? House. And it's either a house or apartment or someplace to live is your biggest expense. And then the second place is usually the car. And then there's another one that's pretty close after that is food. And then you have to buy clothes. You have to, there's a lot of stuff. You got to pay for, you like to think you're never going to get sick, but you got to have some kind of insurance just in case you get sick. You probably have some insurance to keep you having an income even if you get sick, or pay for your health insurance, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of expenses in life, and this can't be more than 15%. All right. That is an example. By the way, what was this again? 2000, 23. 2305. Is that what I just heard? 22305. Thank you. 22305. Okay. Then if we compare these two, I'm just ballparking here, but it looks to me like that's about $2,800 difference. So about $2,800. So there's times when you can afford to wait, and hey, I'll save a bunch of money by waiting and saving up for it. And there's times when that just isn't logical, can't do it. My car lease is up, I have to get a new car now. That's one of the reasons car dealers actually like leases. It's because when you're done with your lease, you need another car. And you happen to be standing in their dealership, having just given back the keys to your lease. Of course, it's a logical time to sell you another car. So, anyway. So, there are times when this would make sense to save, and there are times when it just wouldn't. All right, so let's look at the project. Everybody look on Schoology and find the thing called Loan and Investment Project. And we're going to start filling that puppy in right now. If you kept it quick and simple, you could be done with this thing over this weekend, and when we have 3 days of work time next week, you could be done already. Okay, this does not have to be super complicated and intense, but some people are going to want to do it that way. It's up to you. You get to pick. So let me fill in some of the basics. Like, for instance, put in your name, put in the period that you have this class. The due date is next Thursday. Now that is 2 dash, can anybody tell me? I think it's 15, Thursday of next week. Tell me if I'm wrong on that. I think it's 15th. Okay, thank you. And then you're going to either you're going to pick a job. I totally get. You may not know what you want to be for a job. And don't take too long obsessing about this. You don't actually have to pick this for your real life. Just pick a job. Okay, so let's say that you kind of thought about being an engineer. Well, then pick engineer. Look up then how much engineers make. Don't just look in some forum somewhere where a guy says, I hear engineers make $180,000. Look it up on a website that actually shows career, like how much different careers make. I know, I can tell you right now, you have to go to this website. But I don't want to do that. I want you to actually be the one who goes and finds websites that tell you the different careers. Okay? And how much they make. What are you buying? Now, this is kind of weird. Some of you might be like, I'm really careful with my money. I'm not going to buy anything. But for the imaginary scenario, pick something that would be fun for you. Maybe you love the water and you would love to have a boat. Okay, so buy a boat. Maybe you want to buy a car. Maybe you want to buy a really nice car. Maybe you actually want to see, you know what, I don't really want to have an expensive car. I want to look up for a cheap car. Well, look on Craigslist. Try to find yourself a cheap car. Figure out something you want to buy. And all I'm going to say is it needs to be in the thousands of dollars. Okay? I don't want you to, I bought a lamp for $12. Great. Now we're going to do a loan for the $12 lamp. That's going to be ridiculous. And then figure out the cost of the item. Again, I want you to actually find a thing. Find the actual price. Don't just say, I'm going to buy a $20,000 car. Find the car. Find the exact price of the car. Let's make this as real as possible. Next up, annual interest rate for the loan. We're not telling you. It would be easier for us if we did, but we want you to look up what do you think you're going to pay. Maybe your family's a member of the Sioux Line Credit Union, and so you want to go there and look up their rates for car loans. Maybe you want to, I will give you one website that works well for finding rates. It's called Bankrate, bankrate.com. That's a good place to find interest rates so that you aren't just like making up stuff. You got to back this all up and be able to say, here's what I found. Bankrate was giving car loans at 7%. Whatever. And of course, that is still kind of made up because you don't know what your credit rating would be. And therefore, you don't know for sure exactly what your rate would be. Usually, the rates you see when you look them up are the best rate possible. And then if they usually give you the bad news that, hey, sorry, you don't actually qualify for that rate, so we're going to give you this other rate. I don't expect you to do all of that. You don't know what your credit rating is, but But it does say provide website where you found your information. And again, bankrate.com works well for rates. I find kids usually have a really hard time wondering where I go for that. All right, moving on. And you can use any website you want for that, by the way. Next is 15% on this type of purchase. Why? Because again, you need to eat. So we need to make sure that you aren't just being ridiculous. Now let's say I had a $70,000 income from that other looked up a job that I wanted to do. Then can I just say 15% of 70,000? No, it wants monthly. So what's your first job on the 70,000? Divide by 12. That'll make it monthly. Then find 15% of that. How do you find 15% of something? Somebody tell me. Multiply by what? 0.15. And that'll tell you how much you can spend per month. All right. Then, you remember these recursive formulas, u sub n, u sub n minus 1? You're going to write one of those. Then you start actually answering the questions just like we just did a minute ago. This problem that we did together, right here, that's essentially the project. That's why I did it, because it's just you got to look up numbers that are more interesting to you, and you're going to compare how much would it cost me if I took a loan, how much would it cost me if I saved up for it, and you're going to have a little more dialed in info about you, like what job you might be in, what thing you might be buying, and how much this might save you if you could afford to save up for it. Now let me hit the very end of this thing and talk about the ending. It asks you at the end for final product. To show your understanding of loans and investments, answer the following questions in a format of your choice. You might decide to make a poster board and bring it in with a little picture of the car that you were going to get, and like a screenshot of the website where you got the loan information or whatever. And maybe you want to do Google Slides. That's pretty easy. If you have a Google account, you can make Google Slides. It's kind of like a PowerPoint presentation. Maybe you'd like to use a video and explain everything, and you just say, like you have some pictures all lined up on your iPad, and then you talk about them, and then move to the next slide and talk about them. You can talk through your presentation for me. That way you won't have to actually do it in class for me, because you've already done it on a video and explain everything. Maybe you'd rather make an iMovie. But you get to pick. That's part of the beauty of this, trying to give you lots of choice so that it'll make it more interesting for you. And at the end, I want something that's kind of cool. That's why we're giving you so many days. Because if I just wanted an answer to a question like this, we could have already been done with it. I just give you all the info and you crunch the numbers. All right, I know there's going to be a few kids who will be stuck in this. Like, I don't know how to do this. Then come up and ask me about it. I'll give you some one-on-one help. But if I were doing it one step at a time, I'd first pick out what you're going to do. Just pick something, don't obsess about. I don't really want to be a nurse, but maybe I should be an engineer. Just pick something, get a number, and then you'll know how much you can afford to spend. Yes? All right. You are going to have to do it in the format of your choice, so meaning you might choose to talk this through for me. You might choose to record it. You might choose to make a movie about it. So you don't have to stand in front of the class and present it, because maybe you've made a movie and then I can just hit play. You are going to have to present it to not necessarily in front of the whole class. At a minimum, you're going to have to present it to me. And if it's done in a video form and I can hit play, that's fine too. But yes, the thing when you're done with it, it has to somehow be presented to me or the class. And the class part might be, I might give you the choice. Like if yours is really cool, I might say, hey, can you do this for the class? That'd be awesome. And I'm not going to do all of them for the class. All right. Any questions about this little project? You have the rest of today. You have Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday to work on this project. All right. That's all I got for you for today.